The hospital was never quiet, but that night, it was something else. The emergency room doors slammed open, and a woman was rolled in screaming louder than any they'd heard before. Her name was Maya Rivers, 29 years old, healthy and, according to the nurse's first glance at the chart, only 34 weeks pregnant. But something was wrong, very wrong. "She's having multiple contractions," the attending nurse stammered, her voice cracking as she glanced at the sonogram results. "This isn't a normal delivery." Within minutes, the delivery room was a battlefield of nurses, surgeons, and midwives trying to wrap their heads around what the machines were showing. 20 heartbeats, 20 separate racing tiny heartbeats. The doctor, an older man named Dr. Lyles, had delivered triplets once and thought that was a miracle. This was unnatural, unexplainable. It was supposed to be biologically impossible, but the scans didn't lie, and Maya's body wasn't waiting for questions. By 3:42 a.m., the first cries echoed through the ward, then the second, then the third. It didn't stop. By 5 a.m., 20 infants, all screaming in perfect chaotic harmony, had entered the world. The delivery team was drenched in sweat and disbelief. The head nurse fainted. 2 medical interns quit on the spot. But Maya? Maya was eerily calm. She didn't ask to see the babies, she didn't cry, she didn't smile. She just stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open, whispering something too low for anyone to hear. Later, one nurse swore she heard her say, "It's done now, phase 1 is complete." They brushed it off. She must be in shock, they told themselves. But what happened next was stranger than any of them could have imagined. The hospital's camera footage from the nursery ward glitched that morning. The power cut out for exactly 3 minutes. When it came back on, Maya and all 20 newborns were gone. No alarms, no staff saw a thing. She had vanished, as if she was never there. Police were called. The hospital went into lockdown. Every door, every hallway was checked, and yet no trace of her was found. Her belongings were still in the hospital room. ID, clothes, even her phone. But her body? Gone. The babies? Gone. The medical records? Wiped. The media caught hold of the story within days, labeling it the Vanishing Mother incident. Conspiracy. Theories flooded the internet. Some said it was an alien birth. Others believed she was a government experiment. Only one person knew the truth. A janitor named Malik, who had taken a smoke break behind the hospital that night, swore on his life he saw a black van with no plates speeding off around 5:10 a.m. He said the back door was open for a second, and inside he saw Maya, sitting, upright, holding a baby in each arm with a strange smile on her face. Not happy, not sad, just knowing. Then the van turned the corner and disappeared into the fog. No one believed Malik, but they should have, because 1 year later the first child showed up, alone, naked, with pitch-black eyes, and a note pinned to his chest. Malik didn't sleep for 3 days after what he saw that night. He kept telling himself it wasn't real, that the stress, the long hours, maybe even the weed he'd smoked 2 days earlier, it had all played tricks on him. But deep down, he knew what he saw. He could still picture her face. Maya, sitting in the back of that black van, holding 2 babies like a goddess of something ancient and terrifying. That smile, frozen in his mind, wasn't made for this world. He tried calling the cops again, tried talking to a local reporter, but no one took him seriously. The official story was that Maya never existed. According to the hospital records, there was no patient under that name, no birth registered, and no CCTV footage saved. Everything had been corrupted. But then came the letter. 3 weeks later, it was slipped under his apartment door at 3 a.m. No return address. Just one sheet of paper, handwritten in red ink. "You saw what you weren't meant to see. Stay silent or they won't find your body either." He moved out of the city by morning. Meanwhile, across the country, whispers began to circulate. On dark forums, private blogs, and locked chat rooms, stories of strange children appearing in random towns, alone, always aged exactly 1 year, always with the same strange pitch-black eyes. It was impossible. But it kept happening. Portland, Austin, Detroit, Miami. 4 babies, no toddlers, had appeared out of nowhere in less than 6 months. None of them spoke, none of them cried. Each one was found with a handwritten note. The children of Phase 1. The world didn't pay attention yet. Just isolated cases, people said, or pranks. But to one man, it was more than that. Agent Carson Vale had been working for a classified government task force known as Division Red for 12 years. They dealt with the unexplainable, the cover-ups, the things the public was never meant to know. When the Maya incident first came across his desk, even he had written it off as nonsense. A viral hoax, probably. But then he saw the photos from the 4 new cases. The children all looked eerily similar. Too similar. Same jet black hair, same pale skin, same stare that felt like it could cut through your soul. He had seen something like it before. Years. Ago on a failed mission in a black site off the coast of Iceland. Genetic experimentation. The Maya case was reopened internally under the codename Project Rebirth. He ordered a quiet investigation. No agents in suits, no attention. Just eyes and ears. He needed to know where Maya had gone, and what the hell those babies really were. What he didn't know was that Maya was watching him. In a hidden chamber beneath a burned-out church in Colorado, Maya stood barefoot on the stone floor. Around her were 16 of the children, now toddlers, standing perfectly still in a circle. She looked older, worn, like someone who had seen things no mother ever should, but her eyes burned with purpose. "The time is almost here," she said softly, running her hand through one child's hair. "They'll come for us soon. But they don't understand." One of the children looked up at her, head tilted unnaturally. "Understand what, mother?" "That you're not their future," she whispered. "You're their replacement." Just then the ground trembled lightly, barely noticeable to the untrained eye. But for Maya and the 20, it was the signal. Phase 2 had begun. Agent Carson Vale didn't believe in monsters. He had spent a career debunking ghost sightings, alien hoaxes, psychic frauds, and shadow government conspiracies. His job wasn't about truth, it was about control. Keep the public calm, contain what can't be explained, and eliminate what shouldn't exist. But this was different. He sat in a grey briefing room inside the Division Red compound in Langley, staring at a screen filled with images. Children, all of them nearly identical. No known origin, no missing persons matches, no biological records. He tapped the table twice. "Run the facial analysis again. I want full-spectrum scans, bone structure, pupil detail, genetic algorithms." The tech assistant hesitated. "Sir, we already did. 5 times. They're not clones, but they're not natural either." Vale narrowed his eyes. "They're evolving." The thought chilled him. Human evolution takes thousands of years, millions. These kids were just born less than a year ago, and yet their eyes had that ancient intelligence, like they had lived longer than he had. Then came the next blow. The analyst handed him a file marked urgent, leaked footage, private lab, abandoned military bunker, Colorado. It had been sent anonymously to a hidden server used by ex-agents and whistleblowers. The video showed surveillance footage, grainy but undeniable. A woman, barefoot, surrounded by children standing in a circle. She was speaking to them in a calm, eerie tone. Carson paused the video, zoomed in. It was her, Maya Rivers, and behind her, carved into the stone wall in blood-red markings, were 3 words, "We are coming." Far beneath the ground in that same bunker, Maya stood facing the last 4 of the 20. They had just arrived. All 20 were now gathered, uniform, silent. Their eyes glowed faintly under the dim red light of the chamber. Maya held a crystal orb in her hands. Not tech, not magic. Something older. Something that pulsed when touched. She turned to the children. "You were made to survive what they cannot. You were made to remember what they've forgotten. You were made to end what they refuse to stop." The children spoke in unison, voices layered in a sound that didn't match their age. "We were made for the collapse." Maya smiled, but it was sad. Like a mother who loved her children, but feared what they'd become. Suddenly, a loud Boom echoed through the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling. The children didn't flinch. "They found us," Maya whispered. "Much earlier than I hoped." Up above, black SUVs stormed the abandoned church grounds. Armed men in black. Tactical gear moved like shadows. Division Red's elite squad Omega 9, trained to eliminate threats without leaving a trace. Vale was watching through a live drone feed. "Move in. She's in there. No one fires unless I say so." But as they breached the hidden entrance, the feed went black. Silence. For 12 minutes, no signal, no comms, no screams. Then a voice came through the radio, not one of the agents, not even a man. It was a child's voice. "You were warned. Phase 2 is purification." The line went dead. When Vale's team reached the site 2 hours later, all that was left was a hole in the ground, and 20 burnt sets of boots arranged in a perfect circle. No bodies, no signs of a struggle, no Maya. Just a message scrawled into the dirt with what looked like a child's finger. 17 remain. You're already too late. Vale stood in silence. What the hell had she created? The news broke on a cold Sunday morning. It started with a school lockdown in rural Nebraska. A child was found wandering outside the building at 5 a.m. Barefoot, silent, staring at the sun like it was speaking to him. The principal thought he was lost, until he levitated 3 feet off the ground and shattered every window on the east wing without moving a muscle. By noon, 3 more cases popped up. Then 5, then 12. The media couldn't hide it anymore, even if they tried. At first they called them miracle children, gifted, mutants. Some religious groups started worshipping them. Others called them demons. Cults rose overnight, each swearing that the children of Maya were a sign of the end. But for Agent Carson Vale, the end wasn't the fear. It was the beginning. He locked himself inside Division Red's underground war room, pulling data from every known sighting. 17 children were still out there, not hiding, spreading. Each one had powers that defied known science. One could disappear in front of cameras. One could drain electricity by touch. Another could manipulate thoughts, and had driven a schoolteacher into a coma by simply making eye contact. But the worst was the silence. None of them spoke. Not anymore. Not in words. But people who had been near them for long enough reported vivid dreams, whispers, memories that weren't theirs. Maya had turned them into something more than human, and Carson feared she hadn't done it alone. Maya stood atop a mountain ridge in the Rockies, hair whipping in the wind, as 17 figures slowly approached behind her. The children no longer looked like toddlers. They had grown, not in size but in presence. Their faces carried no emotion. Their eyes were like dark stars, holding gravity, pulling you in. "Phase 2 is nearly complete," Maya said quietly. One of the children stepped forward, the smallest, a girl with silver veins showing through pale skin. "What comes next?" "Mother?" Maya didn't answer right away. She knelt, brushed a speck of dirt from the child's cheek. "Next, we give them a choice." The child tilted her head. "They won't choose peace." "I know." And with that she pressed, her hand to the stone beneath her. Far below the earth, something woke up. In New York, Agent Vale met with the President's Classified Science Council. He showed them the footage, the interviews, the scorched boots, the vanishing agents. Then he showed them the truth. Maya wasn't just a runaway mother. She had never been pregnant in the normal sense. Her records, real classified ones, showed she had participated in a government DNA trial 6 years earlier, one meant to enhance human reproduction, to speed up evolution. The program was called Geno, and it was shut down after a lab accident that killed 9 scientists. Maya was the only subject who survived, until she vanished. She had taken the DNA, gone underground, and somehow created life. But the real bombshell? Only 20 embryos were ever made, and now 17 of them were walking the earth with powers no one could explain, and a mission no one understood. Carson leaned forward, gripping the table. "We have to find Maya, not to kill her, not to question her. We need to beg her to stop whatever's coming." A scientist scoffed. "And what if she doesn't?" Carson didn't blink. Then, God help us all. That night the skies flickered with lights no one could trace. People looked up, the stars and were moving. The 17 walked among us. And they were no longer hiding. It started in Atlanta. A 20-story office building collapsed without warning. No explosion, no fire, just folded in on itself like it had been made of paper. Survivors swore they saw a child walking away from the rubble. A little boy in a red hoodie, not running, just walking calmly while glass rained from the sky. 20 minutes later, a video surfaced on a private server used by underground hackers. It was low quality, grainy, but real. The boy stared directly into the camera and then spoke. "We tried silence, now we teach pain." That clip hit the net before any agency could stop it. Within hours it was everywhere. Social media melted down, protests broke out. Churches filled overnight, some with prayers, others with screaming doomsday preachers waving Bibles and rifles. But the worst wasn't the fear, it was the division. Half the world wanted the children dead, the other half wanted to follow them. And just like that, humanity cracked. Agent Vale stood in front of a massive screen in the Division Red command bunker. He hadn't slept in 40 hours. His eyes were bloodshot. His voice sounded like sandpaper, but he was calm. "We're not fighting children," he said to the room full of military brass and top intel leaders. "We're fighting the future. And the future doesn't want us." A general leaned forward. "So what's your solution?" Vale tapped the screen. Satellite footage zoomed in on a snowy region deep in Russia's north. Buried beneath miles of ice was a structure labeled only as Site 0. "Maya's last known visit was here," he said. "It's not a nuclear base, it's not a lab, it's older than any government, something she accessed months before she gave birth. You think this site is responsible? I think whatever made those children didn't come from a hospital bed." Thousands of miles away, Maya stood at the edge of a black lake inside a cavern so large it could have swallowed a city. The children surrounded her, all 17, silent. Their eyes reflected the water, glowing faintly. She looked tired. Her face pale, but her voice then still held power. "They will come, guns drawn, bombs ready, they always choose violence." One of the boys stepped forward. His skin shimmered in the dark, like moonlight trapped beneath the surface. "Why not just erase them?" Maya shook her head. "Because they need to understand what they've done." "They won't. I know." She turned to the others. "It's time. No more waiting. No more hiding. The final phase begins tonight." And with that, she stepped into the lake, vanishing beneath the surface like a ghost, sinking into the void. Back in the US, civil unrest boiled over. In Chicago, a crowd marched under a massive banner that read, "The children are the answer." 3 blocks away, another group screamed back, "Murderers in small bodies." When the police tried to separate them, one of the children appeared in the center of the chaos. He didn't touch anyone, he just stood there staring, and within seconds everyone forgot why they were angry. They just stood, silent, confused, weeping. Some dropped to their knees, and then he vanished. Agent Vale knew what this meant. The children weren't just weapons, they were messengers, carriers of a message the world wasn't prepared to receive. And Maya? She wasn't leading them anymore. She was becoming something else. The lake she had disappeared into, it wasn't just water, it was a womb, and she wasn't done giving birth. The black lake rippled like something alive. The water shimmered with faint pulses, soft, rhythmic like a heartbeat. And somewhere deep beneath its surface, Maya was changing. Not dying, not drowning, evolving. She floated in the dark void, surrounded by silence, her body curled like a fetus, her skin cracked like porcelain, glowing faint lines of silver beneath the surface. Her heart no longer beat. It thrummed like a frequency tuned to something beyond Earth. Her mind echoed with 1,000 voices. Not the children, not even human, older, ancient, voices from the stars, long forgotten by man, etched into forgotten stone beneath the Arctic, the Andes, the Sahara. They were calling her mother, though she had never met them. "The vessel has succeeded," the voices whispered. "Phase 3 will cleanse the earth." But Maya hesitated. Was this what she wanted? Above ground, the 17 gathered, in an abandoned skyscraper in Dubai. Their presence caused streetlights to flicker across the city. Even planes overhead began rerouting. They stood in perfect silence, facing each other in a circle like they always did. But one of them, the youngest, a girl named Lyra, stepped forward. "I feel her slipping," she said, voice trembling. "She's changing." Another responded, voice robotic. "She was always meant to ascend. She is no longer bound by form." "But she was our mother," Lyra whispered. "She was our function." Lyra looked down, then up at the skyline. "She created us to fix the world. But now, we're the ones breaking it." None replied, only silence. And that's when Lyra ran. Without a word, she sprinted toward the nearest edge of the rooftop and jumped. She didn't fall. She flew. Not with wings, not with tech, just with will. Her body moved like it weighed nothing. She had never disobeyed before. But she couldn't be part of this anymore. Agent Vale was at a private research base in Finland when he got the alert. "Child, 17 has gone rogue." He dropped his coffee, grabbed the encrypted tablet and pulled up the satellite feed. A glowing figure, tiny but unmistakable, was racing across the clouds over the Atlantic, not attacking, not hiding, heading directly for the Division Red. "Safe house." "She's coming to us," he whispered. His second-in-command, a former MI6 operative named Hallie, leaned in. "Trap?" He shook his head. "No. It's a message. She wants something." 3 hours later, Lyra sat across from Vale in an underground interrogation room. No restraints, no weapons, just a child with hollow eyes and glowing veins. He didn't ask her anything. She spoke first. "She's not the same. Maya. She's not coming back." Vale leaned forward. "Then what is she becoming?" Lyra swallowed hard. "She's becoming what made her. The thing she touched in sight, Zero, the entity. She was supposed to birth protectors, us. But the entity, it changed her." Vale stared at her. "Changed her into what?" Lyra met his eyes. "Into the next extinction." The words sat heavy in the room, dead silent. Then she added, almost in a whisper, "I want to stop her." Far beneath the lake, Maya opened her eyes. They were no longer hers. They were black, void, alive. She floated upward, her body glowing brighter, and as she rose to the surface, the mountain trembled, an ancient signal echoing through the earth. Phase 3 had begun, and this time Maya wasn't leading it, she was it. They called it the Awakening. It began at midnight. The skies over 10 major cities turned black, not from clouds, but from something else. Something unnatural. A thick veil of shadow, alive and moving, stretching over entire skylines like a shroud. Phones stopped working, planes fell, power grids exploded, and then came the signal. A pulse, felt in the bones more than heard, that echoed across every living thing on Earth. Some dropped to their knees. Others screamed. A few simply stood still, eyes wide, as if their minds were being rewritten. At the heart of it all stood Maya, no longer human. She hovered above the black lake, her feet inches from the surface, her body surrounded by tendrils of living light. Her skin now translucent, shimmering like stardust. Her voice, when she spoke, layered and deep, like hundreds of her speaking through one throat. "Your era ends tonight." And with a wave of her hand, cities began to collapse, not with fire or bombs, but with silence. Entire buildings crumbled without sound. Oceans pulled back from shores like they were inhaling. The planet paused. She wasn't attacking. She was rewriting. But inside Division Red's hidden bunker, deep underground, a new strategy was forming. Agent Vale stood with Lyra in front of a massive tactical display. Global impact zones glowed red. Civilizations were unraveling. Resistance was collapsing. Lyra, breathing heavy, kept her eyes on the sky feed. "She's connected to the entity. Still, if we sever it, she falls." Vale frowned. "How do we sever something that's not even of this world?" Lyra hesitated, then opened her palm. Inside was a shard, a crystal the size of a tooth, glowing softly with the same pulse that lived in Maya's skin. This was part of her. Lyra said, when she created us, she put fragments of herself in each of us. That's why we're linked. Vale blinked. You're her override key. Lyra nodded. If I get close enough, I can shut her down. But you'll die, won't you? She didn't answer, just stared at the shard like it was her own heartbeat. I'm not afraid of dying, she said softly. I'm afraid of becoming her. Above the black lake, the remaining 16 children surrounded Maya like sentinels. Their faces were blank, their minds connected to hers in a vast psychic web that spanned continents. But something changed. Maya's form flickered. A tremor shook the connection. She gasped, not in pain, but in recognition. Lyra was coming. One of the children turned toward the east, eyes narrowing. She broke the tether, Maya snarled, her voice echoing through their skulls. She was always the weakest, the broken thread. She cannot stop what's already begun. But somewhere deep in her core, Maya knew. This wasn't just power versus power. This was blood versus blood. Lyra burst through the clouds above the lake, glowing like a meteor. Her body vibrated with energy she didn't understand. She could feel Maya in her mind like static, screaming, pulling. But she flew faster. Below her, the 16 children rose into the sky like guardians, their eyes locked onto her. They moved as one, a swarm of unstoppable will. Lyra screamed, not in fear but in defiance, and extended her arms. Time slowed. The shard in her hand began to burn. Her veins glowed like fire. The sky turned from black to white for a split second. And then the first child reached her. They collided in mid-air, light against light. A thundercrack of energy exploded across the sky. Then another, then another. One by one, the children came at her. And one by one, she held them back. Not with violence, not with hate, with memory. As they touched her, something passed between them. Visions, whispers of Maya before the transformation. Her love, her pain, her fear, what she had given up to make them. Lyra wasn't fighting her siblings. She was reminding them, and slowly they began to break away. Maya screamed, her form glitching violently. No, no, they are mine! The sky bled. The earth shook. The lake boiled. But Lyra was already falling, fast, burning like a comet straight toward Maya. As they met in the sky, time shattered. They met in the air like two stars about to die. Maya hovered above the lake, her arms wide, the atmosphere around her bending like heat. She no longer looked like Maya. Her body flickered between human and something cosmic, formless, ancient, infinite. Her eyes were black mirrors. Lyra hit her like a bolt of pure light. Their bodies didn't collide like flesh. They collided like realities. Everything went still. Inside the stillness, time fractured. Maya and Lyra stood in a world made of memory. A place that wasn't Earth. No ground, no sky, just floating echoes. They stood face to face in the dream space. No powers, no children, no war, just a mother and her daughter. Maya looked at her, truly looked. For the first time her expression cracked. You weren't meant to break away, she said softly. You were supposed to help me save them. Lyra's voice was quiet. We were never meant to replace them, Mother. Maya flinched. I watched what they did, Maya whispered, trembling. How they ruined everything. The wars, the poison, the greed. They had thousands of years and they only made the world bleed. Lyra stepped forward. So you wanted to wipe them clean? I wanted to reset them, start over, with something better, something pure. Lyra shook her head. You didn't make us better. You made us angrier. Maya turned away, hands shaking. The entity promised we could fix it. Together. It offered us power beyond death. It gave me you. Lyra stepped close and reached out, gently touching Maya's arm. You don't need the entity to be our mother. Maya looked down at her. For the first time in what felt like eternity, tears filled her black eyes. But it was too late. The entity was inside her now. It had been since sight zero. Her womb had been its vessel. The children were just the beginning. The real plan was still sleeping, unless Lyra stopped it, unless she let her mother go. Outside, in the real world, Maya's body hovered over the lake, wrapped in a cocoon of blinding white light. Lyra's form was wrapped around her, their energy bound in a glowing spiral. The other 16 children hovered around them, watching in silent awe. Something was shifting. Then, in a single instant, the lake exploded upward in a massive column of light that turned night into day across 4 countries. And then, silence. The light vanished, the storm ceased, the sky cleared, and 2 figures slowly fell to the ground, landing like feathers. Lyra was the first to move. She looked normal, just a girl again, breathing, alive. Beside her, Maya lay in the grass, still, pale, the entity gone, its link severed. Lyra fell to her knees beside her mother. She didn't cry. She just held her hand. 3 days later, the world began to rebuild. Governments declared emergency powers, but the people had changed. Something about the awakening had opened their eyes to more than just fear. The remaining children spread across the earth, this time not to destroy, but to heal. They carried memories, wisdom, and the genetic code of both future and past. They weren't gods, they were guides. And Lyra? She stayed hidden, watching, waiting. Not a hero, not a weapon, just a girl who made a choice. They buried Maya in the valley beside the Black Lake, though no grave could hold someone like her. A small plaque was placed there by Lyra herself. No date, no name, just a single line carved into stone. She gave birth to change but chose to leave peace behind. And above it, etched in her own handwriting, "Goodbye, Mother."